basically, what I see my short lecture here this afternoon, is to just give you a little bit of context about what was going on in the rest of the state at roughly the same time. We don't really get started in the valley with any serious potting until the early 19th century, 1815 in Newmarket. Now, not the same Newmarket. Okay, you've heard about Newmarket in the Richmond area. I'm talking about Newmarket in the Shenandoah Valley. But they've we're often referred to in the Shenandoah Valley as the backcountry. Now, what we're going to look at here, okay, here's the western part of the state right here. This is running right down the western side between, you've got the Allegheny Mountains over here and what would become West Virginia over here, and then right along in here you've got the Blue Ridge Mountains. So we've got the valley just running here. This is the Shenandoah River, which is what the Shenandoah Valley obviously is named after. And this really, this was, the Great Wagon Road, later called the Valley Pike, was really the superhighway of the 19th century. We've got what we see in the valley is we see a large number of people who came in and settled from the north to the south. They're coming out of Pennsylvania and Maryland, settling as they come down here. And then once most all this gets settled, the people that are coming down after them are just heading southwest. So they're going to areas where the settlement's not there, where there's not artisans. So really in Winchester, that gets filled up with artisans first. And so then they start moving south. Now, I'm not going to talk today about the Strasburg pottery, because everybody, I know you've read and you've heard so much about Strasburg pottery. Most of that is being produced in the second half of the 19th century. That's where the major potting manufacturing is going on in the valley. Something I would say the size of what was going on in Richmond earlier in the first half of the century. But what I'm going to be talking about is things from my county, Rockingham County, and then also some new discoveries that are coming out of Augusta County. So just keep in mind, Richmond's down here. That's where we've been talking about all day, James River, okay? And now that's what we're talking about right up in here. There's Newmarket, Virginia. Newmarket, Virginia, I guess they're both Newmarket, Virginia, but that's Newmarket in the Shenandoah Valley. And then this is going to be Rockingham County laying right in here, okay? And then Augusta County here. So we're a little far away. We don't actually see much Richmond stoneware coming out of our area of the valley. Once you get north into Augusta County and further north, there's been a few pieces that have come out of estates and things, but not too much. Okay, that one. Okay, the primary potting families. The Kaufmans are originally coming out of Pennsylvania. They settle in Newmarket and learn then from the Adam family that comes out of Hagerstown into Newmarket and marries into the Kaufman family. So Andrew Kaufman is the father of Rockingham County pottery. And we'll talk some about him. Multiple generations there, on up into the last Kaufman was potting still around 1900. The Heatwall family. Now we're talking about, again, the families in my, the name of my talk, A Family Affair. The Heatwalls, and just like Rob said at the beginning of today, you've got these clans of potters, and that's really what we had in Rockingham County. John Heatwall marries into the Kaufman family. That's how he gets into the potting business. Emmanuel Suter, who's a cousin of Heatwall, apprentices under Heatwall. That's how he gets into the business. And the Morrises, they again marry into the Kaufman family. So all of these families intermarry or are related in some way, and their sons become potters. They're multi-generations of potters. When we talk about Augusta County just a little bit later, two basic families there that are there for several generations, the Watsons and the Grimms. Okay. Here's what Rockingham County is best known for. what John Palmer first started the term squat pot. He was a squat pot king for a long time, but everyone that came on the market. But this kind of globular, some of them are a little bit more high shoulder, others are almost basketball shape, form of a preserve jar. We've recorded about 60 that were made in Rockingham County. Andrew Kaufman seems to be the one that comes up with the form. The earliest dated one that we found so far is dated 1843. The majority of them are dated around 1850 to 1855, 1860, right around in there. They're made by every member of the Kaufman family, the Heatwalls, the Suitors, we don't know for sure that the Morrises were making. We don't have any documented Morris examples, but here we have a John Heatwall one that is dated 1851 with his name written around the rim there in cobalt slip. We have one here that's signed by Andrew Kaufman, dated 1850. This is an Emanuel Suitor example that says on the back in big letters, Emanuel. This is one here that John Heatwall made probably when he was still working with the Kaufmans down at Beldor in the eastern part of the county, and he did an inscription on this that it was for a lady whose family moved to Iowa and ended up out there and then came back to the valley, but his tiny little signature here. But there's a large number of these extant. A lot of them have passed down through families, so they were something that was cherished and was held onto. A lot of them have a designation either inscribed on them for what the jar was to hold, or they'll have it in cobalt. And there's everything from watermelon to blackberry. Most of them are not spelled correctly. They're spelled phonetically. There's strawberry. There's apple, there's pear, there's plum, spelled P-L-U-M and P-L-U-M-B. And a lot of these, actually, we can look at the handwriting and tell who the potter was that was making them, because the handwriting stays pretty distinct when they're signing these things. So this is the form that everybody associates with Rockingham County, and you really don't, the Randolph jar out here, has peach on it, but again, it's a little different size, a little bigger. Most of these are about a half gallon to a gallon and a half. This one's a gallon and a half size. It's got a 1.5 underneath the handle. This is more of a probably not any more than a half gallon size. So they are. They do tend to be on the smaller size. Most of them are right around a gallon. Okay, we're talking about the families now, a family affair. Here we have Andrew Kaufman at the top. He's, like I said, the father of Rockingham County Pottery. He has he has 9 children. All 5 of his sons become potters. 2 of his daughters marry potters. They marry Lindsay Morris and John Heatwall. Grandsons become potters. So Andrew learns his potting skills in Newmarket from the Adam family, who come down and marry into his family. He goes west then into Timberville, where John Ziegler establishes a stoneware and earthenware pottery in Timberville in about late 1820s. And Andrew's there until on up into the 30s. He ends up then going east towards the Blue Ridge Mountains and buys land in a little valley back there called Beldor. And that's where his family kind of goes and holds up. The Civil War comes. They don't go to fight. Stonewall Jackson sends troops to try to get them to enlist, and there's a skirmish, and some of them get killed. So they're just looking to be left alone. These are potters that are producing mainly pretty much for local consumption. They are selling a little bit. The Kaufmans are selling a little bit east over the mountain, over the Blue Ridge Mountain into Greene County and Madison County. We find some of their pieces over there. They don't go west because Suitor and Heatwall are selling things in the western part of the county. Suitor and Heatwall are selling things on over into West Virginia too. So we've got a little bit over each mountain that they're selling, but mostly what they're producing at this point is for local consumption. Emmanuel Suter does try to get into the steam pottery business later at the end of his career, and really tries to industrialize and has that whole idea of doing that. But that's at the end of the at the end of the 19th century. And let's see, then we've got Joseph Silber, who works for Heatwall. We've got over here, we've got John Ford, married John Heatwall's daughter. Emmanuel Suter down here, who learns from Heatwall. I think all 8 of his sons worked in the pottery at various times and various jobs, potting and doing other things. We've got Isaac Good, who learned and worked for both Suter and Heatwall. So, there's just this whole big family of potters from pretty much the early 1820s on up until the turn of the 20th century. Here's a piece that had been recorded a good many years ago. This is kind of a new discovery, although it's several years old now. But this little sugar bowl, or some people call them honey pots, it's just a small little globular piece, was illustrated in Gene Comstock's book on Shenandoah pottery, and he had gotten the photo of it from Elmer Smith. So I'm not sure whether Gene actually ever saw it in person or not, or whether he just published that photo. But this is pretty much the angle of the photo in his book, although it's black and white. But this is pretty much the angle of the photo, and it's one of only a half dozen pieces signed by Andrew Kaufman. It says A. Kaufman, Rockingham, and actually it's spelled wrong, but doesn't surprise me. We know that a lot of the potters couldn't spell in Rockingham County. So, but this was a piece that was still in the family, and really was a known entity. But until it was brought to my attention several years ago, we didn't really know the full story behind it. Now, okay, we saw. Okay, I'll point this out. Look at this little flourish here. Now we've got these flower head blooms coming here, but this little flourish here, I'd noticed in the photo, but you really can't tell from this angle what it is. Once I got to see the piece, turned it around, and you can see the JH here, JH for John Heatwall. If you go back to the gallon and a half jar that signed John Heatwall in blue slip, it also has the same JH in it. So we know that John Heatwall put his name there. This piece descended in Lindsay Morris's family. Now remember, Lindsay Morris married a Kaufman, so he and John Heatwall were brother-in-laws. They're both working at Beldor with Andrew Kaufman, and this piece descended all the way down through the Morris family until it came out of the family several years ago. So most likely this piece was made as a wedding piece for when Morris married one of Kaufman's daughters, and Andrew Kaufman threw it, and John Heatwall decorated it. So that's a pretty exceptional piece, and to have survived in such outstanding condition too. We won't go into a lot of this, but this is how it descended in the family. And then this is talk a little bit about the Morris potters. And they're not one of the major families, but again, they marry into the Kaufman family, and they are potters throughout the second half of the 19th century. And then this is Erasmus Morris. We'll show a picture of him here in a second, but just a lot of the history of the Morris potters, which I really won't go into at this time. This is what's left of their last pottery site on Dry River in the western part of the county. Central western part of the county. John Heatwall's pottery site was right across the river on the other side of the river, was his site. And again, Morris's sons and the Kaufmans worked together, and also with Heatwall too. So they're, wherever, I guess really whoever's got business, whoever's got orders, whoever's got, the need, they're going and helping each other out. And this is just a detail of what the kiln looks like. There really hasn't been much. I mean, people go up there and pick up kiln furniture and bricks and stuff like that, and sherds, but there really hasn't been any serious excavation of this site to really tell much about it. It is obviously a late kiln, but at least it's protected now the covering. This is Erasmus Morse. The reason I show you this is to really illustrate the closeness of the families and how close these families stayed. Okay, whoops, I was trying to hit that. Okay, so this is Erasmus. He was Andrew Kaufman's grandson, one of his grandsons. This is his wife, Anna, who was also one of Andrew Kaufman's granddaughters. So they're, so again, we're keeping it in the family here. This is, so this is Anna Marie Kaufman, and this is Erasmus Morse. So, so this was the last. The sugar bowl came down through to him from his father, and then went to Sadie, their daughter, and then went to the next generation. But yeah, so that's they're first cousins marrying, and come on. There we go. This is a now I haven't seen this personally. It's in a private collection, but this is a little creamer that was made by Erasmus Morse. Supposedly it's dated 1860. Again, I haven't seen it to verify the date, but the lady that it was made for was a neighbor of the Morrises when they were in northern Augusta County in the Burke's Mill area, had a pottery there, and she was the daughter of Burke's Mill, the local blacksmith there. And so supposedly Erasmus made that in 1860. This one here is dated 1859. And you notice this split head tulip with this little, whatever this is going on here. We'll see that in numerous other pieces. That really becomes a Rockingham County flower, and it's open to discussion exactly what it is, but it looks different at different times, I think, depending on the amount of alcohol involved too. I think so. We've had numerous discussions about this piece. But so you really see that in Rockingham County, northern Augusta County, Rockingham County, and I don't know that you really see it anywhere else in Virginia. So it's and this, I mean, notice it's really finely done handle here. This has got a great little terminal here on it, and this one actually has a thumb rest right up here at the top that projects inside there. So that might have been. This is fairly small too. It may have been for syrup or something like that. Something you had to really hold up a little longer, and so you could have a little better control and a little better grasp of the handle. Here we see some more of those flowers. This piece is actually dated 1866 in cobalt. This is the one that you just saw, 1859. This one is 1854 inscribed on the back for John Kaufman, and this one is stenciled for Emanuel Suter on the back using the little stencil that he used to mark his school books inside his school book. So again, we see that flower going here. Everything. It's really loosely done here on the Suter piece. It's very, very well executed. Again, I don't know whether Suter did this. This is a typical bell door area. This thick rim is what we see coming out of the eastern part of the county. So if Heatwall actually did, if Suter did this, he may have been in the bell door area when he was very young working. We just don't know for sure. But see how loose it is here. See really on this Heatwall piece here, it really starts getting a lot finer. So and there's the two small little jars. These are just little diminutive things. Again, this is the Kaufman piece, and this is the one that's marked for Suter. This one's actually marked for Kaufman, but it was made for John Kaufman's son, because it's marked John H. Kaufman, 1854, or I'm sorry, 1853, and he would have been 3 years old then. So obviously he didn't throw that one, So, you've got to, just like Rob was talking earlier, you've got to interpret some of these names and dates. You can't always say whose name's on it's who made it. There's a lot of Suter pottery that's stamped with Emanuel Suter's factory mark that he didn't make. So, and the same way with Heatwall. This picture we saw here, that is decorated by Heatwall, we're sure, but it's thrown by Silber. So it's Silber's form of pictures. So we can't just go by whose name's on these things all the time. And here's just some of the, this is the little E. Suter mark that's on that little jar. And again, this is what he used to mark his school books. It would have been one of those little brass stencils, and there's actually a larger brass stencil that says that says Emmanuel Suitor that he also used on a couple pieces. This is the John H. Kaufman mark on the back of the other jar, and this is just John Kaufman. This is the father. He actually marked a lot of his pieces, inscribed, Park Factory, Rockingham. Again, he forgot to put the H-A-M in. He had to go back in and stick it in. County, Conrad Store, and this is over in the eastern part of the county in the Elkton, Belder area. Park Factory was right there. If you go up the Blue Ridge, you go into the Skyline Drive, and that was, even in the 19th century, was called the Park. So that's where that name comes from. We see a lot of dated jars in Rockingham County in cobalt. John Heatwall, this 1853 is when Andrew Kaufman dies, the father of all these potters. He dies in 1853. John Heatwall is going back and forth between Beldor and Dry River, running two potteries. I think he tries to merge the two and take over. So he starts, this is actually the only stenciled, I mean, there are a couple of different of these, there are a couple of these extant, but this is the only stenciled pieces produced in Rockingham County. But J.D. Heatwall and Company Potters, Rockingham, Virginia. And so I think this is done when he is trying to merge the Beldor Kaufman part of the family with his people, his family in Dry River, and trying to pretty much take over Rockingham County pottery. It doesn't work, and there's various reasons why. But again, we see that flyer again here on this. And just a couple more of the dated jars here. Again, the same flyers. Now we see other decorations on these jars, but this split head tulip really is what we see the most. And they're dated, on up into the 1860s. Here's the 1866 picture we saw, and there's the 1859. This little jar, this little toy, real tiny little piece here, was made for J.N. Ford, who was a daughter of John William Ford. She was born about 1877, so this was possibly made by Ford or maybe made by Heatwall. It was definitely made at Dry River, and just a cute little piece. Okay, we're talking about Charles Bensfield real quick. Now, this is where the Augusta County part comes in. Okay, so Bensfield, we've talked about the families staying together and potting together for 3 and 4 generations. Bensfield is a Prussian who comes into Virginia. He's a traveling potter, and he kind of just shows up wherever there's work. We know he's here at least by 1864 because his daughter is bought here. Is born here. I think he's at Heatwall's Pottery in 1867, and I'll show you why I think that in a second. Suitor does record him in his day book from 1868 to 69, but he's only recorded as doing molding. He's says that he commenced making molds, he commenced molding, he made saggers, he made spittoon molds, he cut patterns, he made molds. And so it's other than, the saggers obviously aren't made aren't mold making, but the other things that he's mentioned doing seems to be all mold making. And he's taken mainly hay and feed and wares in payment for his work. So in 1870, he's showed up he's in Mount Sydney in the industry census, running a pottery there. There are 2 potteries in Mount Sydney. 1870, he's recorded as a potter in the census. In 79, he gets a marriage license, so he's going out of the valley. He's in Jonesboro, Tennessee. He gets a marriage license there, very, very near where Decker's Pottery is. And by 1880, then he's recorded as a potter in Hamlin County, Tennessee. That's as far as I've traced him. I think that when he leaves Mount Sydney about 1869, probably when he's leaving, about 1877 when he leaves Mount Sydney. I think he probably goes down and is working at the Maggie site down at Abington, because there's some of the decoration that is certainly reminiscent of a lot of stuff that shows up on some of the Maggie pieces. So this is probably what Bensfield's making when he's working with Heatwall. There's this group of jars that are dated 1867. right before he's recorded as working for Suter. And they have these molded, a lot of them have these molded handles. And I'll show you an up-close version of those. These shells here and these kind of reeded, they're little cylinders, reeded cylinders with a shell below. There's about, I think there's 5 or 6 of these that we've recorded with these molded handles, and all of them are dated except one, and all of them have the 1867 date. So I'm sure he's working with Heatwall at that point before he goes over and starts working with Suter. Here's some of the jars that now we had when Scott and I did our pottery book, which actually is for sale out in the gift shop, Rockingham County Pottery Books. If you don't have that, it'd be a good one to pick up. When we did our book, we had attributed these to Heatwall based on the dates and also roughly on the form. And not that it's not necessarily a distinctive form, but there's some other Kaufman and Heatwall pieces that have the same form here. Of course, this also shows up down in Abington, this form on a lot of Maggie's pieces too. But we had originally attributed these to Heatwall, but this was the one group that we just had reservations about, because all 3 of these pieces plus 1 or 2 of the other pieces that had turned up all had Augusta County provenances, but we hadn't really. Nobody had done any work on Augusta County potters or anything like that, and since we were concentrating on Rockingham, we really didn't get into Augusta at that point. But now I'm pretty sure that these are made at the Watson Pottery in Mount Sidney in association with Bensfield. Here's a decoration that shows up on a lot of Maggie pieces. This decoration also shows up on some pieces coming out of Highland County too, which we haven't exactly figured out yet. But here you can see the capacity designation on both of these, obviously by the same hand. And so we do see this kind of really wide top tulip, and these pieces all that are turning up locally to us all coming right out of Augusta County. So these are all going to be, I'm sure now, out of Watson's Pottery. And here's a couple more pieces, a little more exaggerated. These are both dated 1875, flanking the decoration we'll see in the next slide. But these came right down through the Kraushorn family in just right near Mount Sidney. So again, I'm sure now that these are coming out of the Watson Pottery, or possibly Bensfield was probably running. There was another pottery there were 2 potteries. There was Watson and then Shoemate. Also, Shoemate had a general store. He was a merchant. He also had potters, and he was running a pottery too for a very short period. So it's possible he was working at one or both of those establishments. And then here's the 75 and the 18s on the other side of these, and a little odd capacity stamp that really we haven't seen on anything else coming out of the valley. So watch for that. Here's a couple of just other odd pieces that I threw in there just to see if anybody recognizes any of this. Again, we got that wide top tulip coming out there. I do want to let me go back to Bensfield for a minute, and since I think I'm doing okay on time, just another minute or so. He's something about Bensfield that I have discovered researching him. He's in 1870. Now he's still living in Augusta County in 1870. He's about 40 years old. His wife is 43. Living with them is their house girl, Mary Ford, who is the sister of John Ford. We saw that little jar that he made or was made for his daughter. Mary Ford is living with Bensfield. She's 16 years old. Now that really didn't raise any flags or anything until I found out that when Bensfield moves to Tennessee and gets his marriage license in 1870 for his next wife. His first wife had just died. He marries a 17-year-old girl. Now, it's not Mary Ford, but it seems like that he's keeping company with younger women. And so I don't know, maybe if that's a reason he gets run out of Rockingham County and then gets run out of Augusta County and gets run out of Jonesboro and but it just seems like he keeps moving, and he's got this association with much younger women. I just throw that out there. It's, you know, I like to keep things a little bit interesting. But so, Carol, I don't know whether you've run into any of that type of thing in Tennessee or not, but we send them your way, I think. But so that's basically that's basically what I wanted to run through quick. Let me see if I had any more notes. I think that's probably about it. And just this last little. This is a now again. Watch for this. These are both out of Rockingham County, and really finely. See how fine. This is actually on a half-gallon pitcher. It's actually on this pitcher here. Very, very finely potted. Whoops, wrong way. And but this little, see this little triangular terminal here at the end. This is on. There's a pair of mugs that descended in the Etter family in Rockingham County, and both of them have this really fine handle and this really fine little terminal, that cut terminal down here at the end. I don't know who's making these. Don't really, but I'm sure that they're all from Rockingham County. They've all got a long Rockingham County history with them. So again, just something for you to watch for. If you see, this actually has little cuts here. These are trimmed at the edges just to make it a little finer. So this is a fairly sophisticated little piece of tableware, not your traditional, stoneware, beer mug. And it's small. It's about the size of a chocolate cup, I would say. That's what that one is. And it's actually got the split head tulip decorations on each side. They don't have that arch joining them at the top, but they do have the split head tulip. So just a nice little thing that you may want to watch out for handles like that to see whether you can attribute anything through that. So, but that's it for me. Okay.